Friday and I'm off to the Trinity Beach Sports Club to watch Richmond play Port Adelaide with our new coach. Just curious to see how that goes. That's at 1:10. It's about 20 minutes to 1 at the moment. I'm going to go to the bakery at the Trinity Beach Shopping Centre because I can't get any multigrain rolls or wholemeal rolls from the supermarkets. I'm giving up on them. So they're losing my business, and I'm going to see if I can find stuff there. There's two bakeries at that shopping centre. One's a Brumbies and the other one's a local. So I'll try the local one, see how it goes, because I'm not a huge fan of Brumbies, but better than nothing, I guess. So we'll see how it all goes. Oh, well, I watched half the match. It was a bit of an arm wrestle, a bit ugly. We got absolutely killed by Port Adelaide in the first quarter, and it's evened up a bit, but it's pretty ugly. There was a fellow Richmond supporter guy who moved up here in 2020, and we had a bit of a chat with him watching the game, so that was nice. And when I walked in, I was absolutely sweating like a pig because of the bike ride here, and I bumped into Lynn and her mum and one of her students that's staying at the place. So I didn't expect to see her here. Tuesday morning, got on my big bus trip today. Quite cool, quite fresh this morning, but still can get away with wearing shorts and t-shirts, so doing okay, I guess. I got a water bill the other day and I was quite shocked at how much it had gone up. It seems as if everything is just going up in price, and my previous bill was around $60. I'm not sure whether it's a 3 monthly, 6 monthly bill, but it went up to $105. So that's quite a hefty increase, and it's no doubt it's small by other people's standards, but it's all relative. And the other thing I'm noticing is that the shares that I hold, they've still got the same returns they had before inflation took off. So in effect, the income from there is lower, but there are pension increases, but I think that they're below what the actual inflation rate is. So I think me, like many other Australians, working Australians as well, are all taking a reduction in their standard of living. I don't think it's a shock to any of you to hear that. I'm sure you're all going through the same thing. And yet, you hear reports about how the Sydney real estate market has rebounded. It's going gangbusters. It's gone up about, I said, about 4 to 5% this year, and that is just insane. It's at the same time that the federal government, in its wisdom, has opened the immigration floodgates and allowed 400,000 people into the country, which is a record. It's almost the same number that's coming into the UK, because I saw a podcast with people complaining there about the increased immigration in the UK, but percentage-wise, it's much greater in Australia because we've got less than half the population of the UK. So is it any wonder that house prices are going up in spite of there being interest rate increases? Because, it's old supply and demand. And I just can't understand what's going through governments' heads doing this. I mean, I think the government's like this because it disguises the fact we're not having productivity increases, which is how you get real increases in living standards. We're actually just getting the raw numbers up to look, it shows up in the stats as anemic growth, but it means it's not a recession technically. But if you do it on a per capita basis, it is. So it's a con, another government con. Like many things in our society, people have lost trust in a lot of the stuff well, obviously they don't trust politicians, but the stats that a lot of their policies are based on are being tampered with as well. Unemployment and inflation statistics are being tweaked to make it look better for them. And this is the sort of stuff that happens when civilizations collapse. There needs to be trust in institutions, and I'm worried that they don't look long term. Worried about the long term consequences of these actions. You're just worried about short term political gains. Oh, the grotty seat is still there. I don't think people will be using it unless they want to catch fleas or some other vermin. Anyway, yeah, it's a sad state of affairs, I think. And things could look even worse for Australia because we make a lot of money out of iron ore, and the price of that commodity is dropping quite a bit. And while that's occurring, I think they're refusing, a lot of governments are refusing to export coal. We ought to do it while we can, because people may not be demanding coal for much longer, because power generation may come through renewable sources. So we might as well take up the opportunity while we can and get ourselves a bit of a buffer, because Australia, I think, needs to make some major readjustments and become a smarter country, making more high-end goods and services, and that's where our future should lie. But we can't necessarily rely. We used to rely on the sheep's back. That was how it was years ago, and since then it's been the open cut mines. But it can't last forever. An absolute icebox today. It's must be about 5 degrees colder in that bus than it is out here, I would say. Quite unpleasant. Make me I think I'll wear my wind cheater next week just in case. It's sort of like when you go on a bad Jetstar flight, which is in general as most of them, of course, but Jetstar is notorious for having cold cabins. At least I've encountered that they don't waste money on heating, that's for sure. So it looks as though I've come across the bus equivalent of Jetstar. But they're not all that cold, so I'm wondering whether the drivers can actually vary the thermostat. I presume so. I don't know whether they're reverse cycle, but seeing it has an engine, it would be easy to provide heat as well as aircon. It would be easier, actually. So I just think the driver's got the bloody aircon up way too high, and it's really uncomfortable. Anyway, it's a lot more pleasant out. Even though it's a cool morning, it feels a lot warmer outside. Right, this is the delivery I just got from Northside Raw Materials. That's a quarter of a cubic metre of just normal garden soil. And they couldn't, that's 2 cubic metres of wood chip. And unfortunately, he couldn't get the wood chip to, he couldn't dump it in here because he needs a high angle. And this damn door is just not, I'm unable to get it high enough for them to get the proper clearance. If it went straight up, maybe, but it's always a little bit of an angle at the top. And it prevents them from putting it in there where I want it. So now I've got to transport the big one all the way across, and so you can see there's quite a bit of an area to be covered. So at least they turned up early. I need to knock off at 3 o'clock, and I think it's close to 1 at the moment, so I've got plenty of time, but I'll try to move some of it across. At least wood chips aren't that heavy. It's just going to take a long time to move that much stuff, and I'd rather have it behind the roller door than in this side, but you know, you can't have everything, can you? So like I said, at least they showed up. So that cost me over $400. So all this gardening stuff's sort of starting to add up a bit. You can spend a fortune. But yeah, better get into it. Try to move some before I head off to happy hour. At least I'll be earning my happy hour. I was hoping to have a snooze, but didn't sleep that well last night, but I think I forget that idea. It's Wednesday, and I'm heading down to the beach house. And I know that's not the normal thing to do. It's usually on Fridays, but apparently there's a band on. Hopefully a blues band, but I couldn't find any indication of them playing on line. there were a few dates listed, but not today. So, but Steve and Yvonne claim that there's going to be blues on today at the beach house. So that could be quite pleasant. I don't want it to be so loud that I can't hear conversation. That's the major downside of having music. So I'm hoping that they'll be happy to sit a bit further away from where the band is, but we'll see how that goes. They also want to have a bite to eat after that, but again, I don't think I might pass on that because I'm feeling the pinch a bit financially. I've been spending quite a bit on the garden recently. It's a good thing to do. It's a good time of year to do it, but apparently inflation in Australia, as I was talking about inflation the other day, it's stubbornly gone up again. So we seem to have real problems with the economy. It just went up fractionally. It was down to the low end of 6%. I think now it's mid 6% inflation. So it's had a bit of a bump. Not a good sign. And looks like more interest rate increases. So fun and gains with the cost of living. My new front yard, courtesy of all the wood chips that have been deposited there. Over $300 worth of just wood chips. And then you've got to pay for the plastic underneath and the labour putting it all together. So next job is to get some new tiles. These ones are a bit bland. I want something a bit nicer, which will probably cost more. And I've got to do the borders as well. Dale, handyman, he just gave me an idea what it would look like with the borders. But we'll probably, chances I'll go with wood, but I might also use stone. So we'll see how we go. But it's good to finally get it done. It means that this whole area doesn't have to be mowed again, so that's great. And so that's a bit of progress. It looks a lot tidier. I'm quite happy with it at this stage, and it'll be finished probably in about a week's time, I guess. Crazy cockies, God, maybe it's breeding season. They're really noisy at the moment. Not that they're ever quiet, but yeah, that's where there was a rosella, a couple of rosellas in my plum tree. My what is it again? I'm trying to think of the name of the damn thing, but it's actually a plum tree anyway. And it yeah, they were amazing looking birds. Anyway, I've got to get off to the Trinity Beach Bar and Grill. It appears to be our newest go-to place because the beach house happy hours drinks are $5.50 for a schooner, and at the Trinity Beach Bar and Grill it's only $5 for a schooner. So that's a very good deal. Also, their happy hour starts at 3 a.m. as opposed to 4 a.m. at the other venue, so it's a 3-hour happy hour as well. But we're sticking to the standard times, or at least I assume we are, because I'm going to be turning up now, and we'll see how it all goes. I don't know how long that's going to last, but we might as well take advantage of it while we can. It's got a nice view of the lake there. I might take a little bit of footage just to show you. Quite an attractive venue, and at least the person running the place, new owners, trying to attract some new patronage by having these specials. So I'm all for that. In these times of inflation, it's great to have a good deal like that. So we'll see how it all goes. My second happy hour for the week. I don't know how my body can take this sort of punishment. I don't know if I'll make that a habit out of doing this. Well, it's late Sunday morning, just before midday, and I'm heading up to the shops to buy some cheap red wine, or a combination of cheap red wine and clean skin gin if I'm lucky. It's quite problematic with the supply of that product, so I'm not expecting any miracles there, but the red wine will help. I had an alcohol-free day yesterday after a big happy hour day on Friday. Now, it was interesting what happened on Friday, because I was expecting us to go to the new venue, the Bar and Grill, which is a block or so just before the beach house, which is on the actual the beach, the Trinity Beach. But we went to the beach house first, and which was good because that way we got the fries, which you quite like eating. They're very Moorish and they're perfect with beer. So we got a plate of those. We knew they were Old Faithfuls, because the food at the Bar and Grill was overcooked for three of us. So we had our doubts about the quality of the kitchen there. So we did that, and we stayed till just after 5 o'clock for the first hour. And then we went down to the Bar and Grill, expecting we'd still have the $5 schooners in happy hour. No, the proprietor in his wisdom had actually increased the price to $6. We could still get the McAllisters for $6, which isn't a bad deal apparently. I think it is cheaper than the beach house, but for just Great Northern, you're paying 50 cents extra for the schooner. So it undermines your faith in a place when they change prices so quickly. So we don't know if that was a one-day special or maybe a Wednesday special as opposed to a Friday special. There's no information on the board or anything. I think he's just winging it. They had a nice new waitress. She was quite nice, so that's a good sign. But I think Steve and Yvonne would prefer to just go to the beach house now, which is a bit of a shame, because I think the Bar and Grill are at least trying, but they can't just change the price of their happy hour with just without telling your patrons, warning them, or you know, putting something up on a board, so at least when you turn up there you know what you're up for. So yeah, that was a bit disappointing. And as I say, the food there, they are getting a new chef, and they need one, because the three of us were unimpressed with our meals. I didn't realise how bad Steve's was. He had a Parmigiana, and he said it was well, Yvonne was saying there's actually black. That's how bad, that's how overcooked it was. So I would have said, as I said to Steve, you probably should have sent it back, but that's problematic. You send something back and God knows, you know, what's the chef going to do? They might, yes, they have plenty of options with revenge on that one, so I don't know if that's such a great strategy. But anyway, we might have been just unlucky, but the three of us independently felt that our meals had been overcooked. So that's a reasonable pattern. There are 3 different meals, so it's not a good sign. Although one of the other people there that Steve's met at the beach house, Marty, he was raving about the food, so maybe we're just unlucky. I wanted to get into some fairly intense gardening this time of year, because it's cool and it's a perfect time to plant things like greens and tomatoes and what have you. It's just too hot for the rest of the year. So I did actually plant a number of snow peas and sugar peas that seeds that I'd had for about a year ago. I hope they're still okay. None of them have germinated yet, because they've only been in the pots for a few days. But I've also got to get some of these new tomato seeds going. And I don't know what sort of a crop I'm going to get. I'm also going to have a go at getting my raised garden bed operating. I've put a whole lot of palm fronds in the bottom to form a sort of a base. And speaking to Dale, the handyman, he said, yes, you can put cardboard in as well if you want. And I've got a stack of that in a spare room, because he says cardboard's not good as a base for building up garden beds, because you need to basically keep all the weeds away, and that's why I use that black plastic sheeting to before you put the wood chips over the top. But the cardboard's great for something like that, for building up a base. And then I'll put the soil that I've had delivered, I'll put that on top, and we'll see how the garden bed goes, because I've never actually tried that before. It's quite a sunny position, so it's hopefully be productive, and it's a lot easier to use when it's at that level rather than having to stoop down to the ground. So I've got two of them. I've only built one of them, and I'm not even sure if I've got all the parts for the second one, but I'll have a go at putting that together too once I've got the first one up and running, assuming it works okay. Well, there's nothing really can go wrong apart from maybe it bursting with all the pressure from the soil inside, to see how strong it is. I've added extra bracing, it should be all right. So that's it'll be a relief if it is just an allergy that I've been suffering. I tend to get them in winter up here, whereas in Melbourne it was more a spring thing. So season's a little different here. But anyway, I'm walking today because the weather's a bit iffy. I would have ridden a bike otherwise. I'm meaning to go to the Trinity Beach bakery and get myself some multigrain rolls, because for some reason supermarkets up here just don't want to sell them. I also read about the supermarkets. A guy who used to be in the competition, was it ACCC, I think, yeah, competition watchdog. He was bemoaning the fact that we've got the supermarket duopoly, and it's leading to higher grocery charges. I think we all know that. But of course the ACCC has been a toothless tiger from what I can see. They're not doing their job. I think in the US you'd have greater enforcement of competition than we get here. I think our institutions can be pretty wussy, government institutions. And you know, it's so obvious that they are operating as a duopoly when you see the way they have exactly the same charges for, they both introduced paper bags at exactly the same time for deliveries, and they've got exactly the same pricing. I mean, come on. And most of the prices are pretty similar, and they basically rotate specials. So there's obviously an agreement between them, because if you want to buy, say, a chocolate bar, it'll be on special at one supermarket one week, and then the following week it will go into the other supermarket, and it's obviously coordinated. Well, that's how I see it anyway. But I think we could be served a lot better. Unfortunately, we don't have an Aldi up here, and that might sort of throw the cat amongst the pigeons. It's not a bad thing. One of these days it might happen, but I guess they've got to worry about their supply chains. It's a long way from anything. So unfortunately, that is one of the negatives of living here. There's many positives, and positives definitely outweigh negatives, but that is one of the negatives. Whew. It actually has warmed up the last few days too. I noticed that Yvonne was complaining, well, not complaining, just commented about how warmer it was. So I must admit I had the same feeling. It's definitely got a bit warmer the last few days. It's almost as if May was actually cooler than June's turning out. It's only early days, only at the beginning of June. So. And of course, June in the Northern Hemisphere is the warmer time of the year, and we're hanging out for the Ukrainian offensive, but there doesn't seem to be a sign of it yet. Not a major thrust anyway, but there are indications that preparations are taking place. Oh, they did the right thing. They rang their bell before they rode past, so those are responsible bike riders. Good to see. So, yeah, getting back to Ukraine. What's interesting is that they seem to be working on the fact of distracting the Russian forces in Ukraine by having drone attacks on Moscow which is now forcing the Russians to redeploy air defences to Moscow, because obviously it's woefully inadequate. And I think what was really clever from the Ukrainians is that they targeted the rich enclave in Moscow, where the oligarchs and Putin and his cronies all live. And word out on the street, and I don't know how true this is, but I've heard that there were many Russians who were quite happy with that attack too, because I mean, obviously they're not all fools, they're not all sucked in by propaganda, and they know that these people have been living like Romanovs while they've been struggling in relative terms, and I think that resentment will build. However, the propaganda there is pervasive, and it's pretty out there as well. And like I say, it's a lot of similarities between what's happening in Russian society and what happened in Nazi Germany, in my opinion. So population manipulated by a fairly ruthless government, and the great irony is that they one of the reasons to actually invade Ukraine is to get rid of the Nazis. And it's funny that the people saying that are basically the Nazis themselves, following Hitler's playbook from World War II, invade a neighbour. And if you want to draw parallels, I guess you could draw parallels between the invasion of Austria by the Germans, which was actually welcomed by a lot of Germans because they believed in the greater German nation. And what happened in Ukraine, where Putin, apparently his advisors were telling him, I'll love you for it, and you'll be welcomed by the locals. And of course we know what happened. Anything but that, so bad intelligence. But that's what happens if you're a despot and you surround yourself with yes men, not people who are going to tell you the truth. You can say the same thing happened with Hitler, of course, with advisors. Militarily, he got worse as time went on, but he didn't always listen to his generals. And certainly there were times like Stalingrad where he should have allowed them to retreat. And like I say, he and Putin have a lot of similarities in my opinion. But the other thing that I find very interesting, and it sort of goes along with one of my predictions that I've said from the word go, that I believe that Russia may disintegrate into a number of different countries, is what has happened since the Free Russian Corps actually went across the border into Russia and were virtually unopposed and could roam around the southern part of Russia with free will. Please consider subscribing to my channel if you think there's anything there of use to you or entertainment or whatever. And either do that or give me a thumbs up, or if you're feeling really energetic, do both. That'd be great.